This meeting of the Eau Claire City Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Anderson. Berge.
Here.
Brewster.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Imboga.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Otto.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Schoen.
Here.
Serrano.
Here.
Worthman.
Great, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Monday, June 23rd meeting of the Eau Claire City Council. In case tonight's your first time here, I'm just going to go over quickly how tonight's meeting will work. So staff will present on an item, and we have one item tonight, which is the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, and then also different amendments. And so staff will present on that. Council will have an opportunity to ask staff questions, and then we will open it up for public comment, and we will prioritize people who are signed up in the back. And then I'll open up to council chambers. So you still will get to speak even if you didn't sign up, but I will prioritize those who did sign up. For this agenda item on the CIP, the capital improvement budget, you'll have 4 minutes to speak. And then at the end of the meeting, we do have our public comment period, which is only 3 minutes to speak, but I will talk more about that when we get to that part. So. Then also we have blue comment cards in the back of the room if you don't feel comfortable speaking in front of council. And you can always email us too, and our emails are on the website. So, all right, with that, we'll go on to our first item, first and only item, which is the 2026-2030 Capital Improvement Plan. It's a public discussion on the 26 to 30 Capital Improvement Plan, or CIP. And we have Director Winters here.
Just while she's preparing as well, I'll just note that these slides are on the calendar entry for this meeting.
I have a paper copy, so I think I'll go ahead if that's okay
Yeah,
with you.
please do.
We'll catch up. Well, good evening, Council. President Berge. We're here for our second public discussion on the Capital Improvement Plan. This one focuses on amendments that I've received, and then just a brief overview of the total investment for the community. So I've received 4 amendments, we would call it. 2 are technically amendments, 2 are just scope changes, as I'd like to call it. So a little change to what's in the book. The first 2 amendments are in relation to the Endathal treatment program. So that's at Half Moon Lake. We currently treat that with chemicals to get rid of the curly leaf pondweed, I think it is, yeah. So we invest $100,000 annually into that program. So the amendment I've received is removing that, focusing on cutting, and I believe Director Berg can come up here a little bit, in a little bit and talk a little bit more about that program. So the chemical treatment would be removed in order to invest in 2 areas. Adding tree planting in the low canopy areas, and that would be $75,000 annually. And then the second program is Biodiversity Projects Fund. So it's kind of a volunteer matching program of $25,000 each year. We already do have a tree program within our capital improvement plan, but that's in relation to the boulevard trees. This tree planting specifically would be the trees, the soil, all the supplies, because it's in the CIP, and that would be investing that for replanting purposes outside the boulevard. This has a neutral impact to the CIP technically, because you're taking away one project and putting the funds into 2 new programs. But there potentially could be operating budget impact. I just want to say that there might be in relation to maybe more hours for trimming those weeds, or if we would need another FTE in order to plant those trees. So that's just something that came to my mind, but I don't know if this is a good time to pause if we want to hear a little bit more from Director Berg or the council member that proposed the amendment, if that would be appropriate.
Sure. Director Berg just stood up, so maybe we'll welcome
Okay.
him, and then we'll open up to the council members that
Then I do
proposed.
have two more thereafter, but they're completely unrelated, so I didn't want to confuse everybody.
Sure.
so.
Thank you.
Good evening, President
evening.
Berge, members of the council. So, yeah, we have had some discussion about eliminating the end-of-thaw program, mainly because it's a non-sustainable item where, you know, if it was going to actually kill the curly-leaf pondweed, you know, it'd probably seem like a more prudent thing to do, but there has been discussion about it because it keeps the pondweed at bay, about possibly eliminating it. So I've learned a lot about our program recently within the last week here, and I just want to share some information with you. So it is a very slow and tedious process. When the harvester is out in Half Moon, it travels at about half a mile per hour. So it takes us 45 minutes to get from the beach to Bronze Bay, and it has a cutting width of 6 feet. So it's not a huge machine by any means, and it travels very slow. So it is a time-consuming process. I did speak with people that have been with the city for some time, and we did an experiment like this in the past where we did not treat with end-of-thaw, and the curly leaf pondweed came back with a vengeance, as it has done this year. We decided not to treat this year based on recommendations from a local DNR rep and then a professor at UW Stout. The lake was doing really good. We all met as a group, and they said, maybe let's take a year off from treatments and see how the lake does. Curly leaf pondweed has come back with a vengeance. So we are out harvesting now and have been for at least a couple weeks here. So, you know, unfortunately, I think if we do eliminate end-of-thaw, it's going to be a very tedious process for us. Last year, for example, we just went out at the end of the season when things started to get bad, and we were out for about 2 weeks harvesting. So, you know, as it stands right now, it looks like we'll have to harvest the rest of the summer. So it's something to think about. It has a pretty drastic impact on our staffing. Summer is the busy time for our park staff, and you know, adding more labor is certainly something that's going to be difficult for them. So if we did consider this, I think we need to look at the possibility of doing some of this work on overtime, just, you know, so they can maintain their normal duties during the day. And I tried to put some just rough numbers together in my head, and I would estimate it, you know, if we had 2 people that were assigned to that and they harvested for 3 months in a row, you know, plus some overtime mixed in, it's probably a $50,000 venture to our operating budget. So
Okay.
Another strong point of consideration here is our weed harvester. I've been told it's approximately 30 years old, and it's not in the greatest of shape. So each year we take it out, something breaks on it. The conveyor broke this year, so we're working on repairs of that. So, and there is not a weed harvester in our CIP for replacement. We don't have anything in the 5-year plan currently. So if this is the direction we're going to go, we're going to have to look at adding a weed harvester. You know, certainly try and insert one soon. So.
Okay. Thank you, Director Berg.
Yeah.
And then I think I'll open it up for the council member. Is that okay?
Yeah,
To propose this, and then we'll have questions just on this amendment, if you just want to stand by in case there's questions for staff. Oh, do you want to hear first from council members, or can we do that, like whoever proposed, and then we'll open for questions for everyone? Okay, so which council member proposes? Council member Schoen? So I don't know if you want to speak. Okay, so Councilmember Schoen and Vice President Worthman proposed this. So if maybe you just want to speak a little bit on it, and then we'll open up for questions either for staff or for council members.
Yeah, thank you, Council President Berge. I do want to speak on this. So Council Vice President Worthman and myself worked on this amendment, bringing it forth. As somebody, I just want to say, that cares very much about the natural resources in our community that we're very lucky and privileged to have, I'm very conscientious and skeptical, honestly, about making budgetary changes that would impact how those resources are managed and cared for. I know the Half Moon Lake is a really beloved resource in our community, but there's really 2 pieces of information that bring me a lot of comfort and confidence in bringing forth this amendment that I just want to share some informational things with council for reference. And then obviously we'll have opportunity to discuss tomorrow, so I just am bringing this to your attention to look at informationally tonight. But one, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources does have some fact sheets available publicly on the website about curly-leaf pondweed, which is the aquatic invasive species that Endothall aims to eradicate from lake ecosystems. In that fact sheet on the second page, I've highlighted some information that I think is particularly relevant. In summary, there's information to suggest, which Director Berg did mention, that Endothall is not a sustainable solution and it isn't effective at eradicating curly-leaf pondweed. There's other alternative management strategies to address the presence of curly-leaf pondweed in lake ecosystems, including mechanical harvesting, which Director Berg mentioned as well. Ultimately, for me, one of the things that is very frustrating to see is just the expense of Endothall. I understand that there might be an expense that needs to be accounted for with upgrading equipment potentially, which I'm totally open to, finding a way to incorporate that into the budget. I think that's a much more sustainable solution as opposed to this really high expense, resource heavy chemical usage every year annually. And then the second piece of information that I've included is a letter from, or excuse me, an email from the DNR Lakes biologist that manages Half Moon Lake, indicating that they no longer recommend utilizing Endothall on Half Moon Lake as a strategy any longer. And so the key pieces for me, the other piece which would be you can find in the fact sheet that I shared, is the life cycle of curly-leaf pondweed grows in the spring and then it naturally dies off in early to mid-July each year. And so interested definitely to hear from staff about the amount of mechanical harvesting that would be necessary, because thinking through, like really the high peak of activity through May and June, 2 months of that growth, it just feels like that $100,000 to treat the lake to protect that 2 months just doesn't feel like the best use of dollars to me. So anyways, that handout speaks a little bit to the cost benefit analysis, and then also, again, just looking at kind of what the technical experts make recommendations on for this type of thing, really factored into things I was thinking about with Council Vice President Worthman when we drafted this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. President Worthman, you want to speak on it?
Yeah, thank you, Council President Berge. A few things here. One is the areas that we have amended to, referenced here, the tree planting and low canopy tree areas and the Biodiversity Projects Fund. Those were in consultation with our city forester and thinking about the fact that right now the $75,000 that is in our CIP for tree planting is covering a lot of our canopy loss from our ash borer and loss of trees. And he basically broke it down that there's something like 600 trees planted every year, but there's 900 gaps. So each year we're actually seeing 300 less trees overall, and we're already close to 1,000 now in the hole, so to speak. So one of the things that we talked about is that the focus of this, you can look online to see where these low tree canopy areas of our community are, and the idea here would be that we're focusing more on those specific locations in public right of way. Could be parcels, could be in front of homes, things like that. The other one is the Biodiversity Projects Fund. That's the idea there is loosely modeled after a decade-long program, our neighborhood matching grant program, where people could either fundraise money or bring their own volunteer time to a project, and that's essentially what the idea is here with this biodiversity fund. Could be anything that's like creating a new community garden, putting in pollinator habitat, rain gardens. If you can it could even be removal of invasive species, which I know is a big deal in our community, and some people here actually work on. So it's helping those kinds of things happen in our community. in terms of the end-of-thaw treatment, I think our conversation, and Councilmember Schoen and I have talked a lot about this, is do we need to be thinking differently about not only the way that we manage our curly leaf pondweed, but what does our management approach look like? Like, is it reasonable that we're gonna clear the entire lake of this invasive with a 1 mile an hour machine? Or do we wanna focus on areas that get higher usage? For example, fishing and the beaches, and maybe some channels for navigation. If you look in your packet here from the Wisconsin DNR, they talk about mechanical harvest as being one of the ways to kind of clear navigation channels, not that you're gonna have your entire lake free of curly leaf. So those are the conversations we gotta think about. I've already shared with Lane, and I've shared with Councilmember Schoen, that I'm interested in us offsetting some amount or increasing some amount of operating, in the operating budget, going toward strengthening our staff response to this. I think the question is, though, what level do we want to do that at? And just know that I have the concern that we will have to figure out a way to do it on the operating budget side, because I don't think what we're currently doing is probably going to be enough. So thanks for letting me kind of talk through some thinking on that. And hopefully it also gives the community members who are here to speak about it a little bit more background as they plan their speech tonight.
Great, thanks for those intros. So we'll just take questions now. We're not discussing anything tonight. That will be tomorrow night during our legislative session, but questions for either the mover and the seconder or for staff on this amendment. So Councilmember Serrano.
Thank you, Council President Berge. I am not sure who to direct the question to, but I guess maybe the two movers, if you have. I see the email from our lakes biologist in the Wisconsin DNR. It says they don't recommend continuing to use end-of-thaw in the future. Have we discussed with them what do they recommend, and have they said any? I mean, I know we're trying to mitigate with this mechanical trimming, but I'm just wondering what are there other strategies, and what do they recommend something else for this or not?
Yeah, Councilmember Schoen.
Thank you. So my conversations with the lakes biologist at DNR, and also based on the reading available online, is that, and as Director Berg mentioned, right, we'll treat with end-of-thaw year after year after year, which is what is the recommended use. There's been, and again, as Director Berg mentioned, years where DNR will then go survey the lake, and they will feel confident that we've successfully eradicated the curly leaf pondweed, and then it is recommended to not use the next year, and it comes back very aggressively. And ultimately, my takeaway from that conversation with the lakes biologist through this conversation is DNR now realizes end-of-thaw doesn't work to get rid of curly leaf pondweed. So rather than managing with the mindset that we are going to eradicate it, they recommend shifting to the mechanical harvesting to keep it at bay, to balance the recreational needs of the resource with a more cost-effective solution through mechanical harvesting. There's also additional water quality benefits associated with actually removing the plant matter, biomass from the lake, removing excess nutrients from the system. But in terms of potentially, like, I think maybe what your question is there something else that is recommended, or what else should we be doing to try and eradicate that aquatic invasive plant? My understanding is we don't have an additional recommendation beyond just keeping it at bay with the mechanical harvesting.
Okay. Councilmember Brewster.
Thank you, Council President. Is there is there a biological problem with leaving a lot of the pond leaf in the water to then like decompose? Because I know with some plants you don't want that to happen. You know, if we're not going to be able to take it all out. Do you get what I'm asking?
I think
Councilmember Schoen?
Yep. I think I understand what your question is. Regardless, my understanding of reading the packet that we shared is regardless of whether end-of-thaw is what removes the curly leaf from the system or a minimal amount of harvesting and then natural die-off occurs, there will be some release of phosphorus to the system. So utilizing the end-of-thaw will still release that phosphorus and those nutrients to the system, whereas doing the mechanical harvesting will actually physically remove some of that biomass and get it out of the ecosystem. The that's the extent, I guess I would say, of my knowledge on this, and I would recommend maybe contacting the lakes biologist if you have more specific questions.
Great, thanks. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Council President. I had a question for Director Berg, if this is an appropriate time.
Sure.
To bring him back up here, please. About multi-tiered question, like, for how many years have we been doing end-of-fall treatment in Half Moon Lake? And then what was the quality of water before we started doing that? And do we see less of an impact here? Because I know Half Moon Lake being Oxbow, and we're constantly positively pumping water in there. And, since we're constantly putting fresh water in there from the river, are the impacts of curly leaf less than would be, say, in a fully contained body of water? Hopefully that's enough questions for you there.
There's 5 questions for you. Now you're done for the night. Yeah.
I should have been writing these down.
Yeah.
But, no.
So how long, what was it like before, and is it not so bad compared to other lakes?
I don't know the exact start date of when we began treating for it, but we did start treating in response to the lake being choked off. It got to a point where a lot of the lake was unusable, so that really spurred our desire to do something. And we've been working with the local DNR specialist and a professor at UW Stout, coming up with a plan and then monitoring how things have been doing. But it's been a long time we've been doing it. We have seen improvements, but it only gets to a certain point. It does not eradicate it. It kind of keeps it at bay and lessens the severity of our need for a harvest. And I think I might be missing something there.
You answered it well enough. So
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you
Good
go.
job.
Yeah, and just for information purposes, so as we make each pass with the harvester, we have a hopper full of curly leaf pondweed. We take that to shore, and we have a conveyor that loads it into a truck, and we take it to our brush site, and we add it to our leaf pile, and it becomes compost. So we do actually have a good use for it, so.
Good, great. Councilmember Mboga.
Thank you, Council President. The question is for you. At the back. I'm a little bit confused, please, for my understanding and everybody listening and the people we are here. You said that the harvest is going to cost $50,000. Did you say that?
Yeah, it's a rough estimate that I just put numbers in my head, so.
So if we take the $100,000, where are we getting the $50,000 then?
That's kind of the dilemma that I'm putting in front of you. Initially, I thought there was going to be a pretty significant savings by going to the harvest method, but as I've learned about the process, it's very slow and tedious. So we would have to commit 2 people to do that basically full time for a good duration of the summer. So.
Is that ever here?
Yep.
If I can chime in too,
City Manager Hirsch.
this funding comes from the general fund, so it's as I understand it, was put into the CIP because they hoped it would be temporary, but it is funded on an annual basis from the general fund. So it's basically the same funding that would go pay for staff time. So there's not, and we don't know what the budget is going to look like for our operating costs because of a bunch of variables that are still out, including federal funding, the health insurance, the collective bargaining agreements. So it's not clear what that's going to look like. So just if you think about that for this division, forestry and parks and cemeteries are all one division.
Great, thank you. Vice President Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. Just a clarification on that last point. Did you say that right now you estimate about a quarter FTE on harvesting or a half? And then my second question is, what level of management is the estimates that you're giving of 50,000? What level of management are we talking about? Is that you to basically mechanically harvest the entire lake?
Yeah, I kind of use the analogy of working on a golf course. You start mowing on one end of the course, you get to the other end. By the time you're to the other end, you have to go back and start again. It's kind of that same process. As you harvest, as you make your way through the lake, the places that you harvested a couple weeks ago are starting to grow up again. So it's kind of a continuous process. I estimated, 2 people for the majority of the summer. Some of that on overtime plus equipment costs, fuel costs, and whatnot. So, the 50,000 is a rough number, but there is some math behind it that makes sense based on the information I've been given from our employees.
Okay.
And we just as an example, last year we went out and harvested for about 2 weeks, just when things kind of peaked. So but that was after we had treated last year, so. But I anticipate, the majority of the summer, and we have went longer. We've went into August in the past when things were really bad, so.
Great. I have a question. I actually just Googled it, but so I'm wondering if there's any animals that eat curly leaf pondweed, and if you looked into that. Google is telling me that grass carp eat it. So is that an option to fill the lake with carp?
There's every action has a potential for a negative reaction.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I see carp jumping into boats on
that's kind of
on the
yeah.
internet, so I'm a little cautious on that one. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was just one thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking goats too. That might be tricky. Floating goats.
but
All
at
right.
least we're utilizing what we harvest. We
Yes.
are creating nice compost with it. So.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks. There you go. See, it's always good to have creative ideas. Okay, so yeah, we'll move on. So we're done with this amendment, then we'll move on to the
Yep, this
next
one is
amendment.
just a shift in resources kind of from the parks into the forestry and then in relation to a volunteer program. So and just for perspective, we are keeping that tree, it's a new program with the tree planting, so if it's not all gonna be in the boulevard, we kind of have that separate from our other tree account in the CIP. The next one is a change with Owen Park. So right now in the 2025 CIP, the one that you've approved last year, we have an investment in playground equipment. In the CIP that's published now that we're speaking of this evening, we have $50,000 in 2026, $250,000 in 2027, and that was for the band shell. So essentially this amendment switches those, so you will need a second amendment for our current year budget. But what this would do is hopefully we can start on the band shell this year for 2025. I need direction from kind of with design, or some pieces of that could potentially start in 25 and carry into 26. But the playground replacement would shift 2026, 2027, the largest investment in 2027 then, to allow the community to do more fundraising, to see if they can add more scope to the playground. So that one does have a neutral impact on the budget. We will have to amend the 25 budget with our quarterly amendments to just kind of change the description that's published for the public is what that would entail. So with that, I'd hopefully have explained that one well enough. If you have any questions on that one?
I think I'll open up to council members to speak on that, and then we'll open up
Okay,
for questions.
sure.
Is there, which council members?
That was Aaron Brewster.
Oh, okay.
First, yep.
Okay, Councilmember Brewster, do you want to speak on your?
Sure. Both the band shell project and the playground project are ones, neither of them is in, dire danger of collapse or anything, but both are in need of some refreshment in the near future. And so this basically just switches the order in which we do those. There's been some community interest in trying to get a larger playground that's a little less, how do I want to word this, sort of like off the shelf, and maybe something a little more destination kind of focused, since it is arguably one of the most utilized playgrounds in the city. And it is CIP budget neutral. We're just moving things from year to year, and so giving citizens the opportunity to get involved and help with fundraising and potentially, getting excited about design and stuff seemed like a reasonable use of our social entrepreneurship.
Thanks. Councilmember Otto? Do you?
And another 2 points, it's that the equipment is safe. The more immediate concern is that it becomes harder to repair if it breaks because replacement parts become less available. But the playground is fine right now, and I think this could be withheld an extra year while the more immediate band shell is taken care of. And this is budget neutral, but if the community fundraising effort takes off and if they do raise a lot of money for a playground, it could have future costs on maintenance for the city. But that is a decision that we can make later. Maybe they will raise a lot, maybe they won't. Yeah.
Great. Any questions for the council members, or? I have a question for the mover, the seconder. We've got emails, I know, but I haven't noticed any from this particular area. Have you heard from people in the neighborhood, either for or against, or their thoughts on this? I don't know who is. Councilman Rado?
The person pushing for it is the president of the Eau Claire Neighborhood Coalition. So it's sort of a citywide interest. I haven't heard anything from Randall Park.
Okay, thanks.
I've
Councilmember Brewster?
talked to the Randall Park people, and they're in favor, as long as the equipment is safe, which it currently is. And not everybody will be looking for them to do the organizing and fundraising.
Right.
Because their neighborhood association is a little on the smaller side.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think that's an expectation that anybody has of them.
Okay,
They're fine with swapping them.
okay. Thanks for that.
Okay, if I chime in with just a
Sure.
little tidbit of information. So I have no issues with this at all. I think it's a great idea. We love partnerships, collaborations, and whatnot, so I'm really excited that people want to step in and help us create a much grander place than was proposed. When looking at this, we kind of went through a tedious RFP process to select playground equipment for Owen Park and whatnot, and I sat and thought about it. I'm like, what am I going to do with the people that bid on this and were the low bidders? Came up with a good idea, and so thanks, Mr. Brewster, too. But we did actually meet with the Northside Hill Neighborhood Association president and discussed possibly taking the design that was slated for Owen Park and constructing it at Mount Simon. We have money from the Jane Honadell estate that is ready to be utilized right now. We could order the equipment and potentially have it installed yet this fall. So we met with them last week. He was taking it to the steering committee, and we did get some positive feedback. They just want to check on a couple more little options that might be available, but the dollar amount works, and we can create a pavilion with it alongside of the playground equipment. It answers both of their wishes, and while we were out there, we actually found a really cool trail from upper Mount Simon down to lower Simon. And I know that we were discussing the possibility of creating stairs down there. There is what looks like an old logging road or something that with a little bit of work could make a beautiful trail through the woods. It's not a steep grade at all, and it might solve that problem. So
Great.
yeah, it was a win.
Great. Thank you for that additional information. Okay. So more questions? Amendment number 3.
So amendment number 3 is an investment in affordable housing. That would be taking the published project of RDA land acquisition and just adding in affordable housing to that. So the mechanisms would be RDA has an approved district, so council does approve that district. They'd also would approve any DAs with developers, if there was land acquisition outside of the DA, outside of the RDA, with any of our current existing affordable housing funds or land acquisition accounts. So I don't know if I don't have too much more on that one. The program details are still getting outlined, so kind of taking in information from the county programs and from Director White as well in utilizing our housing authority has been mentioned too. So there's a few different ideas floating around on that, but hopefully that can come together then the rest of this year.
Great. Thank you, Director Winters. Are you one of them? Okay, so who is the mover? Okay, so Vice President Worthman? Oh my gosh, okay. Councilmember Brewster.
Thanks.
Yep.
This basically just allows us a little bit more flexibility in how we can use this money by like Director Winter said, just adjusting the scope. Hopefully this will result in some, really interesting, innovative projects coming forward. And if for some reason we aren't able to get anything off the ground, it can still be utilized by the RDA for, sort of more, I don't mean this in any derogatory fashion, but like more standardized projects. Traditional. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah. Councilmember Worthman, or Vice President Worthman?
Thanks, Council President Berge. Just a couple of things that have been talked about as potential concepts is, and I think there's a lot of value in exploring these, but one is the RDA essentially purchasing homes that have, been run down or lower end on the market, and helping to sort of repurpose them and then have that affordable housing component, potentially collaborating with our housing authority to then add that to our stock. Another concept that Councilmember Brewster has talked about and that I think has a lot of potential value is thinking about parcels of land potentially where manufactured homes could be located, and our new zoning code would allow for that. Again, giving us flexibility around what those rents look like. So those are just a couple ideas, but I think we want to allow that flexibility and beyond. And then also potentially working with our Affordable Housing Flex Fund that exists to kind of compound this effort, investing in physical affordable housing assets in our community. So glad to be a part of this amendment.
Thanks. Councilmember Serrano?
Thank you, Council President. I'm curious, I know I've heard the word flexibility used quite a bit here in this description. Does this, it seems like we're moving this from one bucket to another. I don't know, does that mean it precludes us from being able to use any of this money for land acquisition, or does it in fact give us flexibility in terms of land acquisition and or housing? I'm trying to really understand what are the constraints here.
Sure.
Thank you.
The RDA itself can acquire land. They can, pay for those demolition costs. They could rebuild a structure as well. This does not preclude any of those activities. The only thing this amendment's doing is, what's published to the public in our book talks about just land acquisition in relation to one certain area. So we will change the description in the book if the amendment's approved, just to add in the affordable housing. But then the Director White can talk about, areas that he's interested in, and bring those pieces back to council as well.
Councilmember Schoen?
Thank you, Council President Berge. I sit on RDA, and I guess I'm curious to better understand, if any of the movers had talked with RDA about what this would look like, and then also, I think this might be maybe a question for Director White, because I'm having a hard time also understanding exactly what this change is, in contrast to what had been proposed in the CIP initially. There's some other ongoing conversations that RDA has been having sort of related to this, and so I'm just having a difficult time exactly understanding what this amendment does. And so I don't know if that's a question for the movers or if Director White has information to help clarify that for myself and maybe others, but that would be appreciated.
Do you have
I'm happy to defer to Director White.
Okay, Director White.
Good evening, council members. We presented to the RDA an expanded district at their meeting in June. It's something that the RDA has already been looking at, areas of focus, and it's defined by criteria that's set by the state. We're looking at it's still being fine-tuned, but we're looking at an area that encompasses some or all four qualified census tract districts within the community, as well as a number of other areas that have higher ratios of lower poor quality housing. What we see the RDA being able to do is to go in and do what it has traditionally done on a much larger scale, but we've also done on a very micro scale. They've done a single project or single site at a time. The RDA has tools and things that they can do to look at acquiring sites. We'll be using our various partners in the community. That would include our inspections department, the planning department, also the health department, who does housing assessments annually to set criteria to evaluate and pursue projects that we think are highly suitable for redevelopment or even infill replacement. We see three basic tracks to do that. We think there's an opportunity to increase the available rental stock through the housing authority. The RDA could acquire, clear a site, and under our new zoning codes, lay out a use of certain manufactured housing that we've been investigating to create rental opportunities to meet what is the majority of the list of the waiting list for the housing authority. Housing authority has over 500 people on the wait list for housing. Over 60% of those folks need a studio or one bedroom apartment or one bedroom unit So there's a model that we've come together that we feel we can deliver that. And then the Housing Authority manages as any one of their stocks, but it's still owned and rents are captured and then fees are paid out back to for management, pooling funds for maintenance, all done by the RDA, as well as pooling some of the funds from those limited rents to do other projects or other investments down the road and for the project. We also think there's an opportunity to acquire projects that are just beyond repair, but suitable for maybe ownership opportunities. So again, goes back to the idea of can the RDA, we feel we can go in and contract to do a manufactured home project as an infill lot development within these neighborhoods, sold at a level that's extremely affordable, and again, can have the Housing Authority manage income reviews and income qualifications if we want to make it an affordable project for certain income levels. We think there's also an opportunity to evaluate existing sites that maybe are salvageable, and some of the other organizations that work with those types of projects in the community. Habitat for Humanity is one that does some of those that are home ownership opportunities, and they're doing rehab as well as new housing. Home for Good is another organization that has a track record of doing some of that. So they're outside partners that we could spin off or work a deal to help them acquire sites at a discounted rate, or after we've cleared out any blight issues that allow them to do what they do best in terms of programming for home ownership. So there are a number of ways we can address different housing types. It's a seamless process for the city to take, say, vacant lots that the city owns that are within the qualified district and transfer them over to the RDA. We have done that several times for other projects. So there's an opportunity to simply facilitate transfer of city parcels that are not needed for any other use, transfer them to the RDA, and they become part of the development spaces that the RDA can then operate in. So there's a number of tracks we can do that can address a lot of issues, help acquire sites, and some of these will be able to wash, rinse, and repeat, particularly talking about acquiring, selling a home, buying another home, acquiring it, selling it. That's something that can roll forward year after year. So there's a number of routes that we can pursue with this. City will be an integral part of that. Council will be. The RDA proposes the district, but the council finalizes the district and has say on what parameters the planning and redevelopment occur within that district. So council will have plenty of opportunity for input in guiding that process as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good answer. Any other questions? Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Council President. I had a question perhaps for Director Winters and perhaps Attorney Nick. So we're not really moving the money around, we're just in the scope. Is that something that falls under the umbrella of the CIP, or would that be done through some sort of ordinance change? Or just kind of curious why something that's just in the scope, it's not really financial, is done through the CIP.
It's definitely wouldn't be an ordinance. It's a budgeted item, but what we've published to the public says land acquisition of a certain area. So I wanted to be transparent that we were adding to it and then kind of removing that certain area. So it's not, I don't know that it's necessarily an amendment, but if we were to publish the book and completely change what was in there, we needed some mechanism, I guess, and that's the most transparent, but.
So just the way you're publishing the intended use for this is why it falls under the CIP?
It was in the CIP because Director White had requested $1 million for land acquisition in relation to funding the RDA. So that was already in there, and that was part of the city manager's recommended budget. So since it's already published, we'd be amending it. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Or if I answered your question.
So at this point, you're changing what the original thing was, so it has to be done now and to go out with the CIP with the change.
It wouldn't necessarily have to be done now. The amendment was proposed. So yes, you could leave any of these alone, I guess, and change them later at a time. But it does sometimes create, it could create issues. Like, if Director Berg wasn't able to, for example, move that, we've already accepted a bid for one playground and now we're shifting it to another. Sometimes we don't, what if we couldn't find a place for that? So it does have unintended consequences if somebody's already working on something. I guess that would be my only talk against it, I guess.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Vice President Worthman has a question for you, Dr.
This
Dr.
is
Winters.
a little bit related to this amendment, but more related to the overall CIP, and that is the Affordable Housing Flex Fund. And I don't know if I missed it in the email communication that we had, but it's about the remainder of that fund, which I believe is about 200,000. And what happens to that money? Does it roll over, or does it get sent to the operating budget, or what happens to the, I guess if it doesn't get used in the next half year, what would happen to that 200,000?
Projects have 3 years to come to fruition. By that time, usually the scope's changed or there's some other plan going forward. So we cut them off at 3 years. If there's bonded money, we do. Sometimes, like with COVID, I guess we have went outside that policy. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. No more questions on 3, so we'll go on to Amendment
Okay.
4.
So that actually, yep, I apologize. The first 2 amendments are
Oh,
with
that was the
Endathal.
end. Okay.
Yep. The third one is with the park, and the fourth one's with the RDA. So we do have 4 amendments out there online. They would differ from the published book. That's why they're published separately, and then we will amend the book if those are approved tomorrow evening. We do have, for the public's benefit, we have $265 million investment over the next 5 years, infrastructure, parks, recreation. Next year, specifically in 2026, it would be a $48 million investment. We do have about 5 large projects in there. The fire station, training center, an overpass, so a lot of great exciting investments within the community. And as far as next steps, we are taking public comment tonight. Tomorrow, the City Council has a resolution intended to adopt the 2026 through the 2030 proposed capital improvement plan. And then that is officially passed within, pieces of it are officially passed within the operating budget on November 11th.
Great.
That, we're available for any questions. Any additional?
Thank you, Director Winters. Any questions on the general CIP from council? Otherwise, we'll move on to public comment. I know people are here to speak on that. So. Okay. Thanks, Lane. All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people to speak on the CIP. And then I'll open up to council chambers. So just a reminder that people have 4 minutes to speak on an item, and the lights will show you how much time you have left. So green is keep talking, yellow is you have 1 minute left, and red is please stop talking. And I will remind you if you go over the red too. So first up, we have, is it Mara Langret? Hi, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Mara, and I'm here to speak to you as a person who's lived the reality that you're addressing with affordable housing. I'm here not just to tell you my story, but to tell you that what's your decisions, they matter. Whether you allow more housing types, reduce the lot sizes, or ease parking rules, these things affect whether people like me get housed or stay unhoused. 2 years ago, I was living out of my Jeep when I decided to start school. I wanted an education, and I thought that could help me build a future that wouldn't just be about survival, but it would be about purpose. I thought that enrolling in classes would give me a sense of stability and a routine that I could lean on to move forward. And for a while, it did. I finally found a path, a spark that felt like a way out, but as much as I wanted it, reality kept pushing back. The assignments, the lectures, the excitement of learning something new, I really loved it. But the stress of homelessness and the instability of my living situation, the mental exhaustion from dealing with being homeless, all of it has taken its toll on me. Your focus is on where I can sleep without getting kicked out. Where can I use the bathroom? How do I survive? Everything takes 5 steps instead of 2, and it's exhausting. Living in a constant state of stress and uncertainty has changed how my mind works. It has changed me in ways I never anticipated. And it didn't just take away my home, it stripped away parts of myself that I thought were unbreakable. I live in a studio apartment now, and even though I technically have a roof over my head, I still live in fear that it'll be taken away. The systems that are supposed to support housing stability don't go far enough, and they don't reach far enough. Living in a state of limbo is a quiet state of agony. Moving from one temporary place to another with no real foundation helps me not shake that feeling that I haven't truly left homelessness behind. Part of me is still in that Jeep, invisible and afraid to let go, but equally afraid to hold on. I wish I knew what my future held, or at least some small reassurance that this chapter was moving forward towards something better. But right now, all I see is a fragile, unsteady bridge between what was and what might be. If you let aesthetics, trees, and balconies take priority over real affordability, then you're choosing appearances over people, and you're choosing policy over lives. I don't want you to just hear me tonight. I want you to make those changes for affordable housing so we don't get locked out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming down. Thank you. Okay, and then Eleanor Wolf. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Eleanor Wolf, I live on Birch Street, and I have to come to remind you from time to time how much value there is in the environment. And so I'm delighted with this reallocation of the $100,000 from Half Moon Lake to neighborhood tree equity programs and $75,000 into the community biodiversity fund. I'm a strong believer, have to be a strong believer that we're in a climate crisis. And if you don't like the heat today, well, this is where we're going. More heat. And we need trees to keep us cool. We need trees because they're beautiful and make a beautiful city. But I love this idea of having an annual amount in the budget for tree equity. Because if we didn't have any of the trees dying, we'd be fine. But as we know, the elm died, the ash are dying. So we need to keep up with our goal of adding more trees to the city. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming down. Okay. Then Mari Jackson. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I just want to give my support for the CIP use of the $100,000 instead of using the Endothal. And even if we needed to use some of that $100,000 to upgrade our equipment or to pay for the use of it, I think that would be smarter than, it's a no-brainer to not be using this chemical anymore if the DNR is saying it's not efficient to use that. And so that would be the first thing, and I really like the use of it, the money to be used for planting trees and making, like Eleanor said, more trees in the community will just make it better. And the money for the biodiversity projects, I think that would be a great idea. It will help stimulate people to do some projects. I did a project, put in a rain garden a couple of years ago, and I got a grant from the DNR, but, not everybody can. But it gets people involved in the community, and having that money to work with to make our community better is always a good thing, I think. And so yeah, I don't think that, I think even using the machine to do pathways through the lake is better than using the Endothal, just because that's what we always did before. So, yeah, I'm just here to support that.
Great. Thanks for coming down. Okay, we have Jane.
Hi.
Hi,
And
welcome.
I want to start by saying thank you for all you do. It's very heartwarming to like just sit here and listen to all the important work that you're doing. So thank you for your
Thanks
service.
for saying that.
Yeah. So I'm representing the Biodiversity Partnership, representing about 4,000 constituents, and we are in support of the reallocation, given that some of those monies may need to be spent, you know, on the invasive abatement. We understand that. We do think it's the right way to go. In terms of, you know, Minneapolis and St. Paul for years have had these programs of matching programs and people putting in rain gardens or native planting in their yards, and we really need to go in that direction. So I hope that, you know, $100,000 is not really that much money compared to other costs that are being spent. So I really hope that we can free some money up and do this important work and towards ecosystem services for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Okay, Cindy. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Council President, council members, my name is Cindy Harper. I am a member of the Chippewa Valley Biodiversity Partnership. I also am in support of this reallocation of funds away from Endothal in the lake to the tree initiative and the community initiative partnership with the city. I have a slightly different take on it, though. I access different pollinator habitats, and also I want to say to the city, thank you for making the decision to convert 93 acres of Eau Claire to pollinator habitat. It will be really interesting to see how citizens respond to that. But I see a lot of different habitats, and that should be supporting a large number of pollinators, native bees, native butterflies, native moths that we know support birds and us, our lives. And I don't see those pollinators. Even though there's habitat, I don't see those pollinators. And what I'm wondering is it because we put so much pesticide in our environment? You may have seen maps of the amount of pesticide that has been placed throughout the Midwest and the country in general. Over the years, they're placed on farm fields, they're placed in the water, aquatic, they're placed in forests, they're placed in all sorts of terrestrial environments. And the city, by choosing to perhaps not do the Endothal, I'm hoping will perhaps spurn the city to look at other pesticide and herbicide use and realize that this may have an impact on our pollinators just as much as creating habitat. If you're killing them while you're creating habitat, it doesn't help very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Okay, and Nicholas? Hi, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am also here to speak in support of the allocation from the Endothal treatment to the Tree Equity Program and the Biodiversity Fund. I think it would be an excellent opportunity for the city to boost Eau Claire's biodiversity as well as build climate resilience towards the future. Specifically to the tree program, I think the benefits of, even in this short few years that the CIP covers, planting trees would not only address the deficit that Worthman mentioned, but it all has what I believe is incalculable and exponential benefits the longer that we do it. I think every year that that tree grows, the more it shades, the more it shades, the more it cools. So that means less money being spent on road repairs from buckling roads. That means less energy that people have to use to water their lawns, cool their homes, and in addition to cooling more third places for people to populate. And to the Biodiversity Fund, I think that's an excellent idea. I serve on the executive board and in the environmental task force for Jonah, so I can already tell you a multitude of projects that we would absolutely love to fund with just a chunk of those funds. In addition to, as was mentioned, the city is already making a lot more of those blank areas, pollinator habitats, excuse me. I think that maybe invigorates a lot of enthusiasm in people to, hey, I can do this something in our park or in our lawn or something like that, which again, having access and making it easier for people to do those kinds of things, I think would be fantastic for our community. So, thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Okay, and Samantha? Hi.
Sorry, I'm not really great at public speaking. This is my first time being at a city council meeting.
It's fine.
I came
Welcome.
here originally for the allocation with Nicholas here. We're both in support of it, but I ended up seeing the Mount Simon thing, and that was very interesting for me to see and very much appreciated, especially for someone who's disabled. It would make it extremely more doable for Una and I to be able to get up and down to the bottom, and it's somewhere where we are very happy to spend our time. We live right up on McDonough and off of Birch there, and it's a wonderful walk down to the area. It's perfect for us, but due to a lot of the height and the elevation and everything, it can be hard for Luna and I to get up and down. So doing something like that would be super beneficial for us.
That's great.
Thank you guys.
Thanks. Thanks for coming and speaking. Okay, and then Julia? Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Julia Johnson, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Pablo Group. I noticed that in the CIP, the reconstruction of the Gibson ramp is spread out over 3 years, demolition and reconstruction. So I would love to compress that timeline as much as possible. The construction of the transit center has been very difficult on the South Barstow area, and those large projects really have an effect on traffic and pedestrian experience, and making the deconstruction, demolition, and reconstruction as quickly as possible, I think would benefit the entire area and the hotel and apartment building that the Pablo Group operate, that rely on about 145. I feel like if Todd Boer were here, he would correct me, but approximately 145 spaces between those two businesses are currently rented. The hotel was built in the 1970s. The bank building was built in like the 1920s and then added onto in the 80s. So that's my excuse of we inherited this parking situation, and we are very reliant on it. The Barstow Commons or the bank building has some. I think it's approximately about 20 spaces on our lot, but we purchased both of these knowing that we relied on that ramp. So currently, the plan says that deconstruction will happen in 2027. And then in 2028, there's just over $1 million to plan the ramp. And then in 29 is the construction costs. So I would love to plan, demo, rebuild, and have that parking available for, of course, our businesses, but all of downtown, and really limit the amount of time that road construction affects that area. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
That's the end of my list, but anyone in council chambers would like to speak? So we're still on the CIP, so anything about the capital improvement plan? Yep, come on. Welcome.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you. I really appreciated the depth and breadth of the conversation, particularly on the endothal treatment. And I just want to make an additional comment that from the conversation that you're having this evening, that maybe there would be, instead of the decision based strictly on this year's budget, there would be very intentional discussion with staff to beef up the equipment needs in order to cease that. And then, to me, it was just a little unclear as to whether or not there was an end to that. It went through this CIP 2029, but I think that the amendment might be more clear if it said to stop or reevaluate or something like that. But I appreciate the input that you've had from the community about our intention of using less chemical, of being really intentional about the environment, not only that we live in, but that we use for recreation, and invites people to enjoy Eau Claire with us. So thank you so much for being good stewards.
Thanks. And Jill, can you say your name and address, please?
Oh, yeah, Jill Christofferson, 2113 7th Street.
Thanks. Thank you. Nice seeing you. Anyone else in council chambers like to speak on the CIP, the capital improvement plan? And then we will move on to public comments for non-budget items, but, all right. Anyone else? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. So thanks for everyone for talking on the CIP. It's very helpful as we make our decisions. And then, okay, so we will move on to our public comment period. So this is a little different. This is 3 minutes you have to speak. And this is, you can speak on anything of a citywide application. If this is for people that live or have a place of business within the city of Eau Claire, there will be no complaints of city personnel or council members or really anyone. We're going to stick to issues during our public comment period. And then that time will last for 20 minutes. So I think those are all the rules. But we have 3 people signed up for this. Then I'll open up to council chambers. So first up, we have Diane.
My legs don't work anymore.
Yeah. Hi, welcome.
First, I would like to hand those out. I have a lot to say, so some of it is on a handout.
Okay.
And then the rest of this, and these are handouts on what my comments are. I'm here representing a smaller and more specific need in the community. I am the vice chair of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and our plague continues. One of the handouts shows the real harms that are happening to the people living downtown near the ramp. But my comment is going to be primarily about the Passport parking app. It's not being used correctly on the ramp based on all the reading I've done about the Passport app. Several components do not work and need repair or replacement. The license plate recognition system installed is supposed to read the plate, calculate time on the ramp, warn the user if their time is going to expire, and issue a ticket to those whose payment time has expired or those who have not paid at all. Now, the city's policy apparently is to quit keeping track of that after 6 p.m. That doesn't help our problem at all because the shenanigans go on after 6 p.m. All vehicles pass through the license plate recognition system. If the scofflaws were charged every time they entered the ramp and outstayed the 5 or 10 minute grace period to pay, that could be the start of enforcing them to stay away from the ramp. City documentation is unclear if the grace period is 5 or 10 minutes. I've been reading all kinds of documentation you have online. Each time the scofflaws would be ticketed and don't pay, their fine would grow. If they repeatedly fail to pay enough times, law enforcement can revoke their vehicle registration. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation provides the traffic violation and registration program for that purpose. The reason police surveillance is needed to enforce street parking is because vehicles don't go through a license plate recognition system. But we don't need to have a police vehicle on the ramp if this system works correctly. If you believe that the system of the Passport app can function well enough on the ramp to consistently and fairly ticket ramp users. Prove it by making the necessary repairs to the cameras and the IT digital problems. If not, you need to go back to the access gate system. Right now, I consider the way the parking consultant hit the nail on the head. We need professional parking manager.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we have Deb. Yeah. Hi, welcome.
Welcome. Nice to see you again.
Nice seeing you.
Deb Marshall, Riverfront Terrace, as you all know by now. This is an update on the situation at the Galloway parking ramp. We continue to have scofflaws entering the ramp, speeding around in a very unsafe manner, making a ton of noise. I would again welcome you all to come spend an evening with us on the ramp sometime, just to see firsthand how unbelievably loud and how truly unsafe it is to be there. And it's all caused by uncontrolled access to the ramp. They continue because people who are not using the ramp for its intended purpose of parking. We strongly encourage that the CIP budget you are considering tomorrow include expenditures to research and install paid controlled access use of the ramp, or certainly at least the passport stuff that Diane was talking about. In addition to reducing the number of police calls, it will also generate revenue and reduce, if not eliminate, the need for on-site parking enforcement. We hate calling the police, but continue to do so as it's our only option right now. 2 weeks ago, I reported on the intervention of closing the 4th floor off, the installation of a very small number of speed bumps. I didn't realize how few there actually were. That the 4th floor helped for a while, but now all the activity is happening on the 3rd floor instead. And the lights are not working there either, which makes it worse. The speed bumps have unfortunately been a real flop for us. The ramp has 2 center up ramps, and there are 6 flat straightaways on either side of the ramp for a total of 8 lanes. Okay, there were 3 pairs of speed bumps on each of the 2 center ups, and 6 of those 6 pairs, 3 of them now are missing one, so they have not. And the problem is that they don't go wall to wall. They just go, a 4 foot, 4 foot gap and then another 4 feet, so people can get around them really, really easily, especially at night. But the bigger problem, I think, is that the other 6 straightaways have no speed bumps. So, you just get through your speed bumps and then you can just go and run around on the rest of them. So 3/4 of the ramp lanes are wide open to speeding and exhibition driving. And so those 6 pairs were just not nearly enough to deter that behavior. And gluing them didn't help because apparently people are using crowbars to pick them up. Talked with Dave a couple of weeks ago, and he suggested maybe installing in motion-detected gate arms at each of the turnaround points. We see some problems with this. First, if you have a gate arm that's just motion activated, when you lift that gate and there's nothing, no speed bumps, then it's just, ooh, starting gate, let's go. And we get a lot of loud start takeoffs, and that encourages that. Second, we think that they need to go across the entire expanse of the lane, which seems unwieldy. And if you're concerned about people driving through gates and vandalizing them before, this provides just more opportunity for that. And do we have license plate recognition to be able to prosecute any vandals? So we have garnered a little bit of media attention on this now, and we'll be utilizing that as we go forward here too, just to make sure, how horrible the situation is in the ramp. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Deb. Okay. And we have Jerry.
Also on the same subject.
Okay.
225 Riverfront Terrace. I think there's a safety issue that's involved here too. We have, right now, there's 4 people living in their cars on the bottom floor, and I don't know if the police go in or not. And this is not in any degrading her at all for having lived in her car. I know people are in this situation, but there has to be another place rather than the parking ramp for people to live in. I don't know if this is a public safety issue or, but there's the lights, Deb mentioned the lights don't work on the 3rd floor. There's lights between our building, 225 and Jamf, which they're the 4-foot-high ones that have been out for 4 years, or 4 years, I should say. So we like to go out at night, but there's some of us that are older, don't quite feel safe. The lights from on the Pablo Bridge are a terrible nuisance. I mean, they haven't worked since day one. And I hope in the future that the city, when you grant projects that only enhance people's ability from out of town to come down and see the crown jewel of Eau Claire, I hope that in the future you will also know whose responsibility it is to fix things when they go bad, because they do. So, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming down. Okay, anyone else in council chambers like to speak during our public comment period? All right. Great, just want to state your name and address, please.
Sure.
Thanks.
Wasn't actually planning on speaking tonight, but all the neighbors were coming down, so I decided to stop by.
I'm glad you did.
My name is Stuart Schaefer, I live at 231 Riverfront Terrace. The ramp's really getting to be a problem. You're hearing about it over and over again. It seems, though, to me, pretty simple. You just got to fix the gates. Whether that's in connection with the system you've got or not, you just got to fix the gates and keep people who aren't supposed to be in there out of there. It's a safety problem, a sound problem. Many tenants, I think of 3 in particular, moved out of our apartment building because of the noise. We're having trouble leasing the Janf office space because of the condition of the parking ramp. You just got to built a beautiful parking ramp, and now you're not taking care of it. So we really need to take care of the parking ramp. If the city's not up to it, I was talking to Brandon Rickers today, and we thought we'd offer to privatize the ramp. We'll take care of the ramp and run it, that being RCU, if that's the solution. But something's got to be done. There are people living in there now. The people the RCU people aren't feeling good about it at all. They call the police every day. So I just think something should be done. And it's not going to be that difficult. If you need to apportion some funds, that would be great. But I think just the effort's got to be put forth more than anything.
All right. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
down. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak during this time? Yep.
New topic.
Okay, great. Welcome back.
I'm Julia Johnson, and I am also the chairperson of the North Barstow Business Improvement District Board. It is not in your packet this time around, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to be asking you to support the North Barstow Business Improvement Operating Plan created by and approved by the BID board members on June 5th. The operating plan will be in the packet, but I'm not available on the day where there is public comment. I will attend the Tuesday meeting if there's questions while you guys, discuss it. And you'll notice, I want you to know that the plan was created in cooperation with city staff. It was unanimously approved by the BID board. It details our goals around events, bettering the built environment and communication. It states the BID board plan to hire a service provider to help the BID board follow through with budgeted items. And when you consider the operating plan, you'll notice that the budget is for the current year, 2025. And I just wanted to explain that we wanted to get this plan in front of you because it's the first time that it's been modified since it was created in 2005. And the way we are required to give you our budget for the following year by August, and they're supposed to come together. Seeing that this is a big change, we wanted to kind of get approval for the operating plan portion before we submit it with the budget in August. Also, the North Barstow bid has been the first to bring the operating plan changes to you out of the 4 bids in downtown Eau Claire. And I know that there are other bids that are waiting to see what happens with our operating plan before they make changes to their own operating plan. So even though August seems like a far time from now, really getting feedback and getting this settled sooner than later is in our best interest from just, a stress and management perspective.
Great. Thanks, Julia. Anyone else in council chambers like to speak during the public comment period? Okay, not seeing anyone. So let me find my agenda. I think that's, yep. All right, so with that then, our meeting is adjourned. So thanks, everyone.